What's up, party people? It's your old pal F here. Welcome to yet another edition of F Bombs. This is my little spot on the interwebs where I talk about animation, my long and ridiculous career in the animation industry, and anything cartoon related, as well as anything I just feel like ranting about. Thank you for being here. Thank you for finding this channel at all. We're small and sturdy, but we're sincere. So before I get into anything, let me start with that. Thank you for finding this, and thank you for finding this channel. This channel exists, and the only reason I make these videos at all is in support of the cartoons that we're making for this channel. So if you're seeing this, when you're done with this, please, please, please do me and everyone working so hard on this channel a huge favor and close this window and pop open some of the cartoons. They look a little something like this. That was our first real premiere cartoon, Flotchy, Notchy, and Tip. And we've done what I think is about 23 minutes of completely original cartoon content that's on one video, but it's also broken up into several videos. Please, when you're done watching this, please go have a look at these, because people have worked really hard on them, and I gotta tell you, no matter how many times I watch them, I still watch them and go, man, these are good. Especially when you consider, the internet in all of its glory is abuzz these days about independent animation. Well, you don't get much more independent than we here at Fountain's Pen Cartoons, because and again, this is absolutely nothing against anyone who has figured out how to make a buck off of independent cartooning, whether it's through Patreon or the other support systems or whatever. But we're doing this on $0. Like, we are all just doing it for the love of the craft. And we've got people from many different countries, many different time zones, many different backgrounds, many different ages, all working together for the love of the craft to make new original free cartoons. So please, when you're done watching this, give the cartoons a whirl. And what I've got playing behind me is season 1. I'm just gonna let it keep playing because I think it makes for good background noise. And the fact of the matter is, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I put absolutely no real time, effort, or money into these videos. I don't know if you figured it out by me holding this up. This is my title card, because the fact is, I don't want to put any real effort into these videos, because I want to save all that for the actual cartoons. So please, when you get done watching this, give those a whirl. I want to be honest with you about something. Hang on, I need coffee like you wouldn't believe. I put absolutely no preparation into these videos, which I think you can tell. And I'm currently, and it's been a while since I've done one of these, because I've had quite literally a month of colds, flus, the whole shebang. And I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but I'm still getting over it. So I actually put out a poll on Twitter X about what I should talk about today. And oh, look, my poll is over. And I asked, do you want to hear about my life as a teenage robot, current projects, early career, or other? And 43% of you wonderful, wonderful people voted for my life as a teenage robot, and 41% of you voted for current projects, and 13% of you voted for other. 13% of you voted for early career, and then 3% voted for other in comments, and then proceeded to not say what you meant by other in the comments. Thanks, guys. And as I sit here getting over a cold and still groggy from what wound up being, to my shock and surprise, a 3-hour nap, I don't feel like I'm in a good headspace to go into a My Life as a Teenage Robot talk today. So because they were so close, now if it were a huge win on My Life as a Teenage Robot, I would have somehow muscled through and figured out a way to do it. But like I said, I'm getting over many colds. And still groggy from a nap, but I wanted to make a new video. But I feel like even though I'm committed to not putting any real effort into these videos, I feel like talking about My Life as a Teenage Robot has so much significant about it that I don't want to do it without at least a little bit of preparation, because of all the cartoons that I worked on, especially for the cartoons I worked on at Nickelodeon, that one was probably one of the most significant, because it was it was my return to Nickelodeon after having been gone for about a year or more at Disney. And it was during a time when certain people from shows that I had worked on previously that were very successful, you can try and figure out what that may be, were doing their best to see that I never returned to Nickelodeon. And it was the great Rob Renzetti and Fred Seibert who went out of their way to sort of take me in when there were people at Nickelodeon who never wanted to, powerful people at Nickelodeon who never wanted to see me in that building again. So the fact that I wound up at Teenage Robot was very significant. So I like I said, I want to give that the sort of time and effort that it deserves. In addition, it was, one of the best experiences I've ever had in my animation career. Of all the shows I've ever worked on that were created by other people, I mark that one as my best experience. In addition to that, I wound up, being really good personal friends with the creator, Rob Renzetti. Like we, unlike many other people in animation that I would still call my friends, Rob and I, we would get together and we would hang out. Me, him, and Alex Kerwin, and all of our lady friends would get together and play board games on a semi-regular basis. So that was significant. And in addition to that, it was while I was on Teenage Robot that I met and courted my wife, who I've been together with now for 20 years. So just there's a lot of ingredients there that I want to explore. So when I do the My Life as a Teenage Robot video, I want to give it some real thought and significance, which I just don't have the bandwidth for today. By the way, if you're interested in that video, you should know I've done a very comprehensive video of my time on Invader Zim. I've done a very comprehensive video on my time at South Park. I've done a very comprehensive video on my time on The Fairly Odd Parents. And I did a pretty good comprehensive video of my very short time on Rick and Morty. Those are some of the more significant ones. I've also done videos on a number of other topics, so when you're done watching this one, if that's the kind of thing that interests you, give those a whirl, because I think they're pretty fascinating. So, because it was so close in score, I'm going to put the My Life as a Teenage Robot talk on the shelf for today. And today I'm just going to talk about the one that got second place, which is current projects. So my current projects are, you're looking at them. It's this channel. Now, I do a lot of other stuff to sort of keep the lights on and keep a roof over my family's head. And that will occasionally be something worthy of note that, if it's truly noteworthy or something I think will be significant or interesting to you guys here, I bring it up. Right now, I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements and lectures and stuff like that, but I'm also doing a lot of consulting work, which is where people who are either running shows or have a show idea, they basically hire me to consult with them and help steer them in a direction that they think, or that I think rather, will bring them success. Which actually, it's kind of a fun side gig that I enjoy immensely, is doing the consulting work, because one of the things I discovered being a director on the Fairly Odd Parents was that I'd say probably about 85% of being a director, particularly being a director for animation, has nothing to do with drawing. It really doesn't even have that much to do with storytelling or filmmaking or even animation. It has to do with problem solving. There are constant, nonstop problems, and you just have to figure out a way to solve them. From beginning to end, you get handed a script, and that script is already a problem. The script is too long. The script has too many characters. The script is too ambitious for the budget. The script is times out too long. In other words, it goes past the runtime of the cartoon. You have to, first of all, you get really good at recognizing problems before they happen. One of the things that happened recently, I got handed a script, and they're like, yeah, we want to make this an 11-minute pilot, and the script was 23 pages long. And I told them, I'm like, right out of the gate, this is at least twice as long as it should be. One of the sort of prevailing notions in the industry is that every script page equals 1 minute of animation, and that's a good formula to fall back on. But I have actually found that it's more than a minute. So if you've got an 11-page script, you're actually probably looking at about at least a half hour of actual cartoon. That is to say, unless you have actors who really buzz through their dialogue, and you have action that goes by really, really quickly, and neither of those things ever happen. You would be amazed at how a 10-minute script can translate into 25 minutes very, very, very easily. And that's most of the time. And most of the time, it winds up that, you get done with the actual recording, and the recording is 25 minutes, but that doesn't account for any of the action that occurs in the cartoon. And so, right out of the gate, being a director means problem solving. And when you're faced with a tidal wave or a tsunami of problems, you get really good. And by the way, Fairly Odd Parents was one of those shows that was constantly having, we're over budget, we're out of time, half of the animators on this crew have called in sick, this got pushed to this date, all that kind of stuff. When you're faced with a constant tsunami of promises, see, I told you I'm still groggy, of problems, one of the things you get good at, or one of the things that I got good at, was predicting the problems and solving them before they happen. One of the things that, sort of became one of my little calling cards as a director was precisely that, figuring out what the problems were going to be before they happen and solving them before they happen. Like, I would read a script, and I wouldn't just read it and go, oh, this is cute and funny and all that. I would read it and go, okay, there's a crowd scene here, there's a scene with a bunch of fire over here, this is what's going to hold the production up here. Just all the things that would get in the way of that production, being done on time or in the appropriate budget and whatnot. I would also have to think about things like, oh gosh, we're knocking on the door of the holiday season, which means not only are people going to want to be taking time off to go away for the holidays, it also means that they're, it's closing in on winter. People are going to get sick. People are going to call in sick. Blah 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 blah. So all these things, and I never realized until I became a director on the Fairly Odd Parents that problem solving and coming up with solutions is sort of like solving a puzzle, and I found that fun. It wound up being one of the more enjoyable parts of the work for me was figuring out what seemed to be an impossible problem. And it goes all the way back to my very first Fairly Odd Parents episode, which was called Action Packed. And when Butch handed it to me, he said right out of the gate, "It's like, this has problems. It's not funny. It's not entertaining. You can do whatever you want to it. You can change it however you want, but please just make this good." And I read it, and I was like, "Yep, this is full of problems." And I think it was that episode that first sort of made me go, "Oh wow, I like problem solving." It's kind of like I get to be the Sherlock Holmes of whatever this problem is and come up with cool, creative ways to fix it. And again, I think it set me apart as a director because I don't think many animators, I don't think many former storyboard artists, certainly not that many formerly aspiring newspaper cartoonists from Kalamazoo, ever, necessarily develop those kinds of problem-solving skills. Or at least, if they develop those problem-solving skills, they don't find themselves going, wow, this is actually kind of fun. I think that was always the thing that set me apart, was I found a way to enjoy stuff like that. So even though you would hear me complain about it endlessly at the time. So that's part of what, like I said, fills my days, keeps a roof over my head, keeps my daughter in candy beads. She's crazy into these little candy beads that she makes all kinds of crazy stuff out of. This is a bracelet that apparently I'm supposed to wear at the age of 55. Bless her heart. They're adorable. I love them. And she did make me one that I wear, so don't think that I'm terrible. What's ironic is my daughter right now is going through a phase where she is crazy about Invader Zim and Gurr. Like, she has a Gurr hoodie that she wears. She has a Gurr t-shirt. She's making Gurr bracelets and out of these beads and everything. She's completely nutty about Gurr. And it wasn't until she was about halfway through this phase she's going through where I was like, your dad worked on the show that came from. I'm Facebook friends with the voice of that character. And so now she's even more into it. Anyway, so yeah, people come to me out of, a lot of times just out of nowhere, and they're like, "Hey, we were referred to you by so-and-so. Our production is in trouble. Our production is, or our production needs this, that, or the other. How, can you help us out?" And I will consult with them. And a lot of times I wind up just being the director of whatever pilot they're doing. The only thing I don't like about that kind of work is it forces me to be in a position to say to people, "You're doing this wrong. You're going about this wrong." And people don't like to be told that. I get asked a lot of times, basically, we have this square peg, make it fit into the round hole. And, it's like telling them, okay, then we have to round off the corners on the peg. The world is not going to change around your peg. So we have to change the peg itself. We can't change the round hole. You're the ones who have to adjust to accommodate objective reality. And people don't like hearing that. And what will happen oftentimes is we'll get to a point where I'll be like, "Look, I have told you what you need to do in order to make this work. And not just make it work, but make it work so that it actually comes out good." And a lot of times I'll be like, "Well, we don't want to do that, and so we'll part ways." And I'll have already been paid, so I walk away. And that's always disappointing because I love to see these things through. And by the way, what happens most of the time on the occasions where we just kind of part ways and they're like, well, we disagree with your assessment of the situation, is you never see it happen again. You never see or hear from their production. Their pilot never goes on the air or online. They just never get anywhere. And I wind up sitting there going, I tried to tell you. And that's, again, that's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's a little satisfying to sit back and go, I told you so. But on the other, I don't get involved with something if I can't find a way to be. I'm going to make an effort for a second here to skip past this because it's an ad playing and nobody has paid me for anything. Oh, it's LS Mark. I like LS Mark. I don't get involved with anything unless I can get enthusiastic about it. And so, regardless of how good or not good I think the thing is that I'm consulting on, I always wind up having a tiny bit of feeling of ownership for it. And by ownership, I don't mean it's mine. I mean, I've now put, blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. I want it to go well. And so then when those things, when they don't listen to me and they collapse under their own weight, part of me can't help but be like, geez, that's kind of a shame. So, unfortunately, many of those current projects that I just mentioned, I can't really show you any examples of, or I can't talk about in any great detail because I've signed all kinds of non-disclosure paperwork and yada, yada, yada. But it does also seem like in the near future, probably over the course of next summer, that is to say, summer of 2026, I'm going to go around and probably do at least a couple of speaking engagements, which, like everything else with me, is another double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's interesting. I really don't like talking to people one-on-one that much. It's just one of my personality things. But I love getting up in front of a crowd and doing a lecture. It's really cathartic to me, and it's really satisfying to me. So I love doing speaking engagements. But the trouble with those speaking engagements is the before and after is a whole lot of one-on-one conversations where I have to meet the dean of the College of Art at whatever university, or I have to talk to this person or that person, and just the amount of small talk just grinds me. And I've learned I have to be very careful about how I prioritize my time on those days, because whereas getting up and doing a lecture, I'm exhausted afterwards, but I'm also energized. But small talk just drains the life out of me, and if I do too much of it, I won't have any energy for the lecture itself. So, seeing as how we're talking about current projects and how my biggest current project is this channel, it's been presented time and time again that I really should start making some appearances at conventions and stuff like that, and that we should, Fountains Pen Cartoons should have a presence at some of the conventions. Here's the problem: nobody remembers me. I live in North Carolina, and there was an effort made to get me as because I don't like to travel, but I will do it if it seems like it's going to have a big impact on the channel or whatever. But since there was the Raleigh Con, whatever it is, there was an effort made to go, you're right there. Raleigh is right there. Let's send you to Raleigh, and you can talk about the channel, and you can promote the channel, and talk about your past experiences on the various shows and everything. And you're a big deal. Well, it turns out I'm not that big of a deal, because my wonderful folks at Fountains Pen Productions tried to push me on the good folks at RaleighCon or whatever it's called, and they were basically like, John who, F what, huh? We don't care. And then they wound up instead booking the person who uh, did the voice of Clefairy on season 12 of Pokemon. Bitter, just a little. No, not really. Um, but that's how that went over. But that's part of that is my fault too. I've not been, apart from social media, I've not been putting myself out there for over, geez, at least 15, 20 years now. So it's kind of no wonder that, nobody knows who I am. So, but point being, as this channel continues to grow, it is going to be part of the program where I go out and do stuff more like that. And goodness knows, I would love to meet some of you, because I get your DMs, I get your emails, I get your replies and responses on this channel, and it's always a delight. I would love nothing more than to meet up with some of you folks and say hi and thank you personally for supporting the channel. It's always just the getting there. It's the getting there and getting home that is the hard part, because as I love mentioning, I'm 55 years old. I'm not a young fella anymore, and 55 they say is the new 35 or the new 45. I'm not sure I believe that. I feel every bit of 55 right now, which doesn't. I'm having a blast. I'm having a great time at this age in my life, but it doesn't mean traveling for me is a bit of a process, especially as I get older and set in my ways and not as patient with sitting next to people on an airplane and stuff like that. So, but let's talk a little bit more about this channel, because one of the reasons I did want to talk about current projects is if you enjoyed even a tiny bit season 1 of Fountains Pen Cartoons, I am thoroughly convinced you're gonna lose your actual minds over season 2. And season 2, I should apologize, is taking much longer than any of us wanted to, but you have to understand, again, we are all of us, myself included, and I'm the biggest person to blame for all this. Like, this would all be going much faster if I were more hands-on. But one of the reasons this channel exists is we're not just an independent studio, we're a mentorship program, and I'm mentoring all of the people who are working for this channel, not just the artists, but for the people running everything. And so by both design and by circumstance, I let people make mistakes. I could be a lot more hands-on. I could be a lot more nitpicky. I could be a lot more like, micromanaging, and I could be doing a much better job of being a leader. But I sort of consider that one of the things that is valuable about the way we're doing this is that we're a learn by doing program, and I've seen it work, and it's frankly, it's the only way I know how to teach, because it's the only way I learned. If you watch one of my previous videos about how I got my start in animation, and that's a long one. It's a long one, but honestly, if you're interested in animation, you should be watching it, because it's very comprehensive and it tells my whole journey, and you will learn. I didn't go to school for animation. I didn't really have any great desire to get into animation. I managed to get into it because I came in during one of the animation booms where there just weren't, there were more jobs than there were people to fill them. But after that, I survived many, many, sort of downticks in the industry because of the skills that I developed by learning on the job, and I learned on the job really fast. And so it's that experience that I'm kind of trying to pass along to the people at Fountains Pen Productions, who are making our cartoons here. And in that case, um, that oftentimes means staying out of their way. And a lot of times that means they very naturally, by virtue of their own natural talent and their own natural abilities, create stuff that is better than I could have created or would have come up with. And other times it means saying, I know how this is going to go, but I'm going to and I know it's not going to go the way anyone wants it to, but I'm going to let it happen so that everyone involved can kind of learn from that. Perfect example of this is, we had one of the Fountoons, we call them, our super shorts that we make for the YouTube Shorts thing. And I wasn't into it from the very beginning, but everybody else wanted to do it. It was based on a comic strip that I'd done a million years ago, and several people thought, "Oh, this will make a good short." And I'm like, I don't know. Even I don't think it's that funny anymore. I think the humor's a little dated, but everyone wanted to do it, and so I said to myself, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna let these folks, take control over this and do it. And it was developing and developing and developing and developing, and the stuff people were doing had tons and tons of great stuff in it, and it showed lots of promise. But after a while, and again, I would just sort of step back and let people work, and then review their work, give my notes, that sort of thing, and then step back and let them go back to it. And after, I forget what the exact, amount of time was. I know it was at least months. It was a few months that was poured into this. I finally looked at it and I said, guys, I just don't think this one's going to make it over the finish line. But what I know for a fact is we've put a whole bunch of effort into this, and it's not where it should be, and I don't think it's going to give us the return on our investment that we want. And so I pulled the plug, and it was not fun. I didn't want to do it, but it was one of those times where I was like, okay, this has to be one of those moments where you've got to be the bad guy. You've got to be the one. This is how lessons are learned, and this is how things are taught. And so I made the command decision of, we're shutting this one down. We're going to pick something else, and we're going to do a different one, and we're going to do one that's a little less high maintenance than this one. And one of the immediate reactions was, well, oh my gosh, we've wasted all this time. And my response to that was, no, 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 no. You cannot, and I want to impart this upon anyone out there. You can apply this to anything you do. You can apply this to your job at the coffee shop. You can apply this to your schoolwork. You can apply this to absolutely anything. Something is only a waste of time if you can't figure out a way to learn something from it. I'm going to say that again. Something is only a waste of time if you can't find a way to learn something from it. Experience teaches you, and experience begets wisdom. And the attaining of wisdom is never a waste. It does not matter what the context is. I will do craft projects with my daughter all the time where we'll experiment with something. We'll go, oh, let's try and make this, and it'll fail. And it'll be like, wow, this is just not going to work. This was a waste of time. No, it wasn't, because we've learned a little more about how everything works. And if nothing else, it teaches you patience, and it teaches you perspective. So, that's one of the things that goes on behind the scenes. It's probably very easy to watch these cartoons. And by the way, this is not me bragging about me, because I'm not the one who made the cartoons. The cartoons are based on my ideas, but the people who made them made the cartoons, and you can tell that they worked incredibly hard, but objectively they're really good. Again, when you consider that we did it for no money, no budget, no Patreon supporters, nothing like that. They're objectively great, and they're all just people putting in their spare time to make these things. And so it's easy to look at them and go, oh, people just sat down and made these cartoons. No, there was a ton of trial and error that went into every single one of them. Tons and tons. Whole scenes got cut. Whole projects got scrapped. We have cartoons that are about 95% finished that should have been in season one that still aren't finished yet, just because hiccups occur. And you have to sort of accept that as part of the process. Hiccups occur. Things happen. Things don't go the way you want them to. And that's now the good news is I'm hoping some of those, if not all of them, are going to be in season two. And they're really, really great. And season two, getting back to the original topic of this video, current projects, is not only going to be more ambitious from an animation standpoint, but it's going to be more ambitious from a varietal standpoint. There's going to be a little bit of everything in season two. Everything always has an element of comedy, because that's just the way I work. But we're going to have horror, we're going to have action, we're going to have dark comedy, we're going to have light comedy. Again, we're going to do more Found Tunes shorts that are just quick little jokes. It's a little bit of everything. And I got to say, it's kind of a dream come true, because one of my favorite things growing up, one of my biggest comedic influences was a show called Monty Python's Flying Circus. And for you younger people, I don't know how many of you are even aware of Monty Python's Flying Circus, or you might be aware of it, but you never really studied it. Lots of people know Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's this bombastic classic that is practically required viewing for anyone who loves comedy. So lots of people have seen the Holy Grail, but Monty Python's Flying Circus was a TV show with, these 5 British guys who created the show, and every show it was a menagerie of different skits and things. And it was sort of, it laid the groundwork for what Saturday Night Live would become, in that there was no continuing narrative. It was a lot of like sketch comedy. But Monty Python's Flying Circus is worthy of, you can take college classes on the brilliance of Monty Python's Flying Circus. And what I loved about it was that it could go in completely different and bizarre tangents on a dime. Like it could you could be watching something that was completely absurdist comedy, and on a dime it would turn and it would become slapstick. And then on another dime it would turn and it would become surreal. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, but in a family-friendly cartoon version. And for me, that's kind of a dream come true. Even if I had gotten any of my shows picked up when I was in Los Angeles, I had always thought, my next show that I'm going to want to do after I sell, the big show, is that I want to do one that's a variety. And, Oh Yeah Cartoons and the What a Cartoon Show were pretty close to that, but they didn't have the sort of overarching narrative voice. Like there was no one voice. And that's what they needed to be. But I always wanted to do a variety cartoon that did have that sort of overarching vision. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And look, if you enjoyed season 1 of Fountain's Pen Cartoons, season 2, like I said, is going to be very, very different in a lot of ways. In other ways, it's going to be a return to form. But we also want to, and this is me thinking in terms of season 3, we want another episode of Flotchy, Notchy, and Tip. We want another episode of some of our other characters. There's been talk of doing a sequel to the My Underdog Story cartoon. And if you haven't watched that one, we can't really do a sequel to that one, but another cartoon where it's me sort of just sitting there telling a bizarre story from my youth, of which there are many, and packaging it in the same way. Okay, so here are some of the things we've got coming on Fountain's Pen Cartoons. Dig. I'm finally comfortable talking about them a little bit now because I've been pushing them on social media, because it kind of seems like the temperature in the cartoon viewing community is reaching a stage where I think we're doing some stuff that people are going to get very excited about. Um, the one that I can't say the one I'm most excited about, because I'm very honestly equally excited about every single one of them. But one thing that we're going to be putting out in season 2 is called Nightmare Hunters, and this was I've made no bones about proclaiming this. I considered this series, which I had pitched and sold to Warner Brothers, and it was under their umbrella for, I don't know, a few years. They owned the rights to it. I developed it with them. We had a pilot script. We were moving on to a pilot animatic and all this stuff before all at once it kind of got slashed, and everything that wasn't Batman or Scooby-Doo just got dropped at Warner Brothers. But the rights finally reverted back to me, and so I'm like, ooh, we're gonna do a pilot episode of Nightmare Hunters. And I mean, Nightmare Hunters is the title, and you can pretty much guess what the plot of the show is. And this is a show that I created over 25 years ago. It's about a couple of characters, Lucy and Rem. Lucy is just a normal human girl who has a uncanny ability to shape her dreams. But it's kind of a double-edged sword as a power goes in the dream world, because she has this ability. The king of nightmares in the nightmare realm is out to get her, because he doesn't want more people to discover that they can shape their own dreams and blah blah blah, and so they're going after her. And so she winds up teaming up with a former nightmare, a bad dream gone good, named Rem. And Rem and Lucy, team up to sort of battle nightmares, because the nightmares have discovered a way to make their way into the real world, and so chaos ensues. And Rem and Lucy are kind of the ones who try to keep that from happening. So there are elements of Ghostbusters in it. There's elements of Alien in it. There's elements of The Matrix that inspired it. It's a lot of Grizz Grimley work inspired a lot of it. There's a lot of different influences in it, and it's my sort of, like I said, I've called it my magnum opus, in that it's the most layered cartoon I've ever done, I've ever created. It's really got a lot of different layers to it. It's epic. It's my Star Wars. It's my foray into world building, because I created the dream world in my own fashion, in the way that I thought it should operate, and it's got its own rules and blah blah blah. Oh, and of course, I mean, there's no question whatsoever, I was very influenced by Tim Burton and a lot of his work and stuff like that. So you'll be able to see those elements, but it's its own thing. It is not just another, here's a dark goth, teen thing. It's its own thing, and it's at its core, it's an allegory about conquering your fears. So I'm really, really excited about that. We're doing what is essentially a very, very, very short pilot episode, but everything you need to know about like the world and how we're approaching this whole thing will be very efficiently compressed in what I think is about a 5 to 6 minute pilot. And that's the one we're hoping that if we premiere the pilot, that people will get behind it in such a way that we can start making full episodes in that. And right on the tail end of that, on the heels of that, of Nightmare Hunters, is a thing called Battle Beetle, which was sort of my attempt to fill the void that was left by Invader Zim. A lot of people see my work and they go, oh wow, this reminds me of Invader Zim, or this reminds me of Joan and Vasquez, and And their assumption, quite understandably, is that by working on Invader Zim, I was influenced by that show, and my style uh, became like Jonan's. But it was actually the other way around. I got the job on Invader Zim because my style and art and overall sensibility was as similar to his as they were able to find at the time, and so that's how I got the job. My style and everything are sort of, naturally synchronized with that style. Now, eventually, what wound up happening, because I was the lead character designer for season 1 of Invader Zim, but what wound up happening is eventually they discovered, and I discovered, we all discovered, that Aaron Alexovich, who was my assistant when we first started the show, is way better at it in terms of the Invader Zim show than I was. And I left to go do Fairly Odd Parents, and he took my place as lead character designer on Invader Zim, which made perfect sense because he was even more in tune with that style than I was. But point being, my style naturally is similar to Jonan's style at the time and Zim and all that stuff. So anyway, but it wasn't until I had probably been off the show for at least 5, 6, 7 years when I came up with the idea for Battle Beetle. And I got the idea actually because I was off camping with a bunch of friends, and we were up in I think Angeles Crest mountains, and we were on this hike, and there were these 2 beetles that were, really at least about that big, if not bigger, and they were duking it out. And a friend of mine looked at that and said, "Wow, look, it's a beetle battle." And I heard that, and I'm like, "Beetle battle? Battle Beetle is a great name for a show." And I think I said that out loud, and I came home after that trip and created Battle Beetle, which is it's a story about a dung beetle who, and this is a show that's very heavily influenced by things like Thundercats and Silverhawks and that stuff, in that, especially Thundercats, in that the whole idea is that there's this alternate world that has echoes of the Earth that we know, but where presumably things evolved in a different way, and insects are the dominant species or whatever. So it follows the adventures of a dung beetle who's very filled with like bravado, or as I call it, dung ho, as he travels around, and it's got elements of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which was a show that I grew up on and loved tremendously. It's also very heavily influenced by G1 Transformers, which is another show that I loved as a teenager. So because all of the insects in this world transform and have several alternate modes. So again, very, very heavily influenced by all those franchises, as well as Invader Zim. Because one of the things that was great about Invader Zim was that it was such a great mixture of action and comedy. And I love me an action comedy. So, it's kind of a traveling ninja monk story mixed with very, very funny, ridiculous, absurd characters. So that's another one that we're working really hard on. That is coming out looking absolutely amazing. We have a completed animatic for the entire cartoon, so we are chomping at that bit to get that one done. For season 2, we've also got a sequel for those of you who loved, and many of you loved, thank you very much, the report cards of the near future of the girl who got the report card with emojis on it and stuff. She is coming back, and she is clearly setting herself up to be, the new voice of Gen Alpha, which I'm really excited by. So she's coming back. We've got, and then there's the Petty Avenger. I got to tell you, I don't want to reveal too much about the Petty Avenger, particularly because this was one of the first ones where it was literally a single panel comic strip that I made when I had decided to just do a bunch of comic strips on my own just for fun. And I created this character called the Petty Avenger, who avenges things like people spitting on the sidewalk, or for people taking up too much space when they're walking down the street. This was a character that was born from me living in New York for 10 years and coming up with all these petty, irritants that I would come across in daily life. And so I created a superhero to avenge the average person who was annoyed by these types of people. People who drive around with the volume and bass in their car up so loud that it shakes your windows. And this was one of the first occasions in the formation of Fountain's Pen Productions where when the crews started to go at it, they really veered off from what I had originally written and taken it in a completely, I don't want to say different direction, but they expanded it in ways that I never thought it could be expanded. And it's turning out just absolutely amazing. So I don't even want to talk too much more about it than that. And I mean, it's among our crews, it's developing its own just sort of separate lore and all this amazing stuff that I can't wait to share with you guys. Pardon me. I really am running on fumes, despite the fact that I just had a 2-hour nap. Welcome to middle age. Those are just the three. Those are just a handful of things that I'm going to mention off the top of my head. The point is, we've got amazing, terrific stuff coming up. So please stick around the channel. I know it's been a while since we premiered an actual cartoon. Oh, by the way, a couple other things that are coming up. We've got this thing called The Story of Boards, which are little animated segments that show little bits from my early career pitching storyboards. And so far, we've got 2 celebrity voices. One is Rob Renzetti, does the voice of Rob Renzetti. And the second one is Fred Seibert, the creator of the What a Cartoons and Oh Yeah Cartoon Show, does his own voice as well. I'm trying really hard to get the other big hitters, who are Larry Huber, who will probably maybe be up to it. I don't think he'll be against the idea because he and I are on good terms. But the other voice I really want to get to do for the final little clip of that particular series is Butch Hartman. And I've sent out an email. I've made inquiries. So we're trying to do all celebrity voices. So that's another thing we're doing. I did a series of comics about time that we're also doing, and about how time is so precious and time is always evading and eluding us. And it's really more about, anxiety and that sort of thing. So, and the animation for that is turning out really great. Just a whole wide, bizarre variety of things that I think you guys are really going to be into. So, and again, behind the scenes, I'm still, like I said, I'm doing stuff like, I will do some character designs on a freelance basis, or I'll consult on a freelance basis from time to time for the studios and what have you. But really, very honestly, creatively, this channel is where I'm putting all of my most vehement attention when it comes to John Fountain, the animator, cartoonist guy. So if you liked The Fairly Odd Parents, if you liked My Life as a Teenage Robot, if you liked Invader Zim, if you liked Rick and Morty, if you liked any of those things, many of the things we're doing on this channel should appeal to you. So I would, I'll wrap this up by very humbly asking, please, please, please subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about it. I know it's a big thing and believe me, we will take anything, talk about us or spread our links all over social media, but I really think there's value to be had in word of mouth. So please tell your friends about this channel and have them give us a look. I think we do a style of show that has a very wide appeal. We do some niche stuff when it comes to cartoons and animation, but I have always said, and this has always been something that back when I had an agent when I was in Los Angeles, it always frustrated her because I would go on these show pitches, and at every show pitch they would be like, well, who's your target audience? Who's the audience you're trying to reach? And my answer was always, I'm trying to reach people who want to be entertained. So that's what all of these cartoons are. They're not necessarily for any certain age. We try to keep everything basically PG-13. So unless you're very very strict about what your kids watch, and if you are, good for you. Basically anyone should be able to watch these cartoons and at the very least not get offended and hopefully have a good laugh. They are made for people who are looking for something quick and easy to, sort of intellectually digest and hopefully have some fun with. But they're made for everybody. So, please tell, even if your friends who are not necessarily into animation, please help spread the word about this channel. And as far as I am going to keep doing these F-bombs. I know we've got a new episode of Chasing the Nightmare coming up, which is all of my crews here, who, by the way, they're all much more interesting than I am. I keep begging them to make, videos of themselves and do more sort of behind the scenes stuff, so you guys can see how their jobs work out. We got more stuff like that coming up, and in fact, in the process of getting Fred Seibert's voice for the cartoon that he's in, I wound up spending, I think, at least a little bit over an hour on a Zoom call with him. So I recorded it. So for F-bombs, we are working to splice that together into something a little bit shorter, but you will eventually see an interview between me and the creator of the Oh Yeah cartoons and What a Cartoon Show. And it's a really great chat because, like I said, this is the guy who made the careers of Genndy Tartakovsky, Craig McCracken, Butch Hartman, Rob Renzetti, and we talk about a lot of stuff that you probably didn't know about the behind the scenes mechanizations or whatever of those particular shows. So, and he goes into a long talk about where animation was, where it is now, where he thinks it's going, and all the things. So I think all those things will be interesting. So anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Like I said, I do apologize for the fact that I'm groggy and still, slightly dopey from all of the cold medicine that I've been taking. I hope you've found this to be helpful, insightful, at least slightly entertaining. And like I said, even if you've watched them before, if you've never watched them before, if you've made it this far in this video, when you're done watching this, please watch the cartoons. It's why I do these at all. So until next time, thank you as always for tuning in. By the way, please understand I am incredibly grateful to anyone who tunes into this channel and engages in our work. And please, if you have suggestions for us, I make a real effort to at least acknowledge, if not answer, anything that that comes into replies. So please comment. Reach out. I'm all over the place on social media. So please just get involved with us, because one of the reasons we started this channel is, or one of the commitments we had, was to be actively engaged with our audience. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to say, hey, I found this, and give us your thoughts. Nobody takes criticism better than me, because I have no feelings to hurt. And at this stage in my career, I have nothing left to prove. So I'm very open to saying, hey, I really think you should do this, or what about that, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Like I said, please like, share, subscribe, and spread the word to your friends. So until next time, zig zig ah, party people.